You already know what you need to do. That's the part no one talks about. It's not the information that's missing. It's not the plan. It's not the right moment, the right conditions, or the right version of yourself. You know exactly what the next move is. You've known for months, maybe longer, okay? And that silence, that gap between knowing and doing, that silence is slowly becoming your identity. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they became experts at waiting. Think about the last time you had a clear idea of what needed to happen. A business you wanted to build, a skill you needed to sharpen, a decision that needed to be made. You didn't act. You told yourself a story about why. Maybe it was timing. Maybe it was fear disguised as wisdom. Maybe you said you were still planning, still preparing, still getting ready to get ready. But the truth, the uncomfortable, undeniable truth is this. Strategy without execution isn't strategy. It's a fantasy with a deadline, okay? And the deadline is closer than you think. Here's what no one in your circle will tell you. The longer you hold a strategy in your head without acting on it, the more that strategy becomes a source of shame rather than power. Every day, it sits there, untouched. It whispers to you. It reminds you of the distance between who you are and who you said you would become. That whisper doesn't motivate you. It erodes you. It becomes the background noise of a life half-lived. You weren't built to be a thinker who never moves. You were built to execute. Okay, now here's where it gets psychologically interesting, because this isn't really about laziness. Okay, the people who can't execute their strategy are often the most intelligent people in the room. They can see every possible outcome. They can map the failure points before anyone else. And that variability, that sharp analytical mind, becomes the prison. Because when you can see every way something could go wrong, your nervous system starts treating action as danger. Your brain, designed to protect you, starts working against you. It labels forward motion as threat, and you freeze. It's not from weakness, it's from intelligence turned inward. But here's the brutal correction. Your brain doesn't get to vote on your destiny. Think about the most decisive people you've ever admired. They weren't reckless. They weren't ignorant of risk. They simply understood something that most people spend their entire lives learning too late. That the cost of inaction is always higher than the cost of a mistake. A mistake can be corrected. A missed window cannot be reopened. Time is the only currency that cannot be refunded, borrowed, or earned back. Every strategy has an expiration date, okay? And yours is expiring right now. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called temporal discounting. It means that the further a reward feels from the present moment, the less real it feels to your brain. Your mind assigns value based on proximity. A dream 5 years away feels abstract, intangible, almost fictional. So your brain deprioritizes it, chooses the comfort of now over the power of later, okay? And slowly, that dream gets replaced by a quieter life. Not a worse life necessarily, but a smaller one. A life that fits inside the edges of what felt safe. The question isn't whether you have a strategy. The question is whether you have the psychological courage to honor it. Let me tell you something that cuts deeper. The version of you that hasn't executed yet, that version has a name. It's called potential. And potential is the most dangerous compliment a person can receive. Because as long as people call you talented, as long as they say you have what it takes, as long as you believe the real version of yourself is still coming, you never have to prove it. Potential is a waiting room, and some people live their entire lives in it. Stop living in the waiting room of your own greatness. There's a moment, and if you're honest, you know exactly the moment I'm describing. There's a moment when something shifts, when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. Psychologists call it the threshold of transformation. It's the point where identity pressure finally overrides comfort. And here's what's remarkable about that moment. It doesn't come from inspiration. It doesn't come from the perfect motivational speech, or the right book, or the conversation that changes everything. It comes from a quiet, devastating recognition that time is finite, that the gap between your potential and your output has a cost, and that cost is being paid silently, invisibly, every single day. You are already paying the price. The only question is what you're paying it for. Now, I want to talk about something that separates the people who execute from the people who perpetually prepare. It's not discipline, though discipline matters. It's not motivation, though momentum helps. Identity. The deepest driver of human behavior is not what we want. It's who we believe we are. If you believe, somewhere beneath the surface, that you are a person who almost makes it, then almost making it will feel familiar, safe, normal. Your behavior will bend toward that belief with terrifying consistency. You'll find reasons to slow down exactly when you should accelerate. You'll introduce doubt exactly when clarity is within reach. Not because you're broken, because your behavior is loyal to your identity. So the strategy isn't just about the plan. The strategy is about the person executing it. This is where execution becomes a spiritual act, not religious, spiritual. To execute on your highest vision of yourself, you have to be willing to let the old version of you die. The version that needed certainty before moving. The version that needed approval before deciding. The version that confused thinking deeply with acting boldly. That version served a purpose. It kept you safe during a time when safety mattered. Okay, but you're not in that season anymore. Carrying that old identity into your next chapter is like trying to run a race in armor built for a battle you already survived. You don't need protecting from your own potential. You need to unleash it. Let's talk about what executing your strategy actually requires, not in theory, but in the architecture of a real day. The first element is non-negotiable commitment, not the kind of commitment you announce to others, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't require witnesses, the kind that exists between you and the mirror at 5 in the morning when no one is watching and nothing is glamorous and the work is just the work. That commitment is the foundation. Without it, strategy is just vocabulary. The second element is temporal urgency, and I don't mean panic. I mean the clear-eyed recognition that windows close, markets shift, health changes, energy fades. The people who are waiting for you won't wait forever. The opportunity that feels permanent is not permanent. Nothing is permanent. That impermanence, properly understood, isn't terrifying. It's clarifying, strips away the noise, and leaves only one question standing. What are you going to do with the time that remains? Third element is the hardest. It's psychological tolerance for incomplete information. Because here's the truth that every successful executor knows. You'll never have all the data. You'll never reach a point where the risk has been fully mitigated and the outcome is guaranteed and the path is entirely clear. That moment doesn't exist. It has never existed for anyone who has ever built anything worth building. The people who changed industries, built empires, created movements, they all moved before they were ready. Not carelessly, decisively. Readiness is not a prerequisite for action. Action is what creates readiness. There is a version of your life where you look back at this exact moment and recognize it as the turning point. Not because something dramatic happened, but because something internal shifted. Because you decided, quietly, firmly, without announcement, that the gap between your strategy and your execution would close. Starting now, not next week, not after the next milestone, not once the conditions improve. Now, because the conditions will never be perfect. The timing will never be ideal. The risk will never disappear. The life you want is being built or not built in the decisions you make inside imperfect conditions. That's where character is forged, not in ease. In the friction of choosing to move when everything in you says wait. Here's the final thing I want to leave with you, okay? And I need you to sit with this rather than just hear it. The greatest regrets in human life are not for the things people did. They are for the things people almost did. The business almost started. The relationship almost pursued. The voice almost raised. The version of themselves they almost became. Regret for action fades with time. Regret for inaction grows with it. Every year that passes without execution does not just cost you progress. It costs you the belief that you can. And once that belief is gone, no strategy in the world can replace it. Your strategy is not the problem. Your belief that tomorrow is safer than today, that is the problem. So here is your moment. Not a metaphorical moment. This one, right now, as you're listening to these words. The strategy exists. The vision exists. The version of yourself that executes, that person exists too. They are not somewhere in the future, waiting to be unlocked by the right circumstances. They are in you right now, suffocated by hesitation, buried under the weight of every reason you've rehearsed for why not yet. Let today be the day that reason dies. Not loudly, not dramatically, just the quiet, powerful decision of a person who finally stopped negotiating with their own potential. The person who looked at their strategy and said, "This ends now." The waiting ends. The rehearsing ends. The permission-seeking ends. I move. I build. I execute. Because I am not a person who almost made it. I am the person who did. That identity is available to you, but it cannot wait forever. If these words struck something real in you, if they reached past the noise and hit something that recognized itself, then you already know what this channel is about. This is not a place for generic motivation. This is a place for the kind of psychological truth that actually changes people. Subscribe, not for content. For the version of yourself you're in the process of becoming, because that version needs this, and so do you. Execute